Israel and Lebanon signed a U.S. brokered framework that both governments said that it's historical and it was described as a turning point, but also the implementation has sparked fierce debate between different countries, how it was interpreted. So in terms of the questions around sovereignty, security, Hezbollah, and the future of south of Lebanon, much now depends on how both sides interpret this framework. We have our guest today, Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon. You have described this deal as important and historic, but the Speaker of Lebanon, of the Parliament of Lebanon, Nabih Berri, has officially rejected the deal, and he warned that forcing the Lebanese army to disarm Hezbollah is a booby-trapped dictate meant to trigger internal civil war. What do you think about that?
First, I think it's about time we do peace. For years, we thought that we can achieve it. We dreamt about it. And I would tell every official in Lebanon, and wakat as-salam, this is time for peace. Enough. Enough with the wars. Enough with the fights. And it's about time that Lebanon will be governed by the Lebanese. We all know who is behind the voices against this agreement. They are not from Lebanon. It's coming from Tehran. It's coming from Hezbollah. They are afraid from this agreement and have a good reason to be afraid, because if, inshallah, this agreement will be implemented, at the end of the day, Hezbollah will be out of southern Lebanon for sure, and maybe even out of Lebanon. So they are fighting. They want to take over this beautiful country, and I think there is an opening for a brighter future for Lebanon, but they have to be strong enough to take control of the situation. Otherwise, if Hezbollah will stay there, we know what they will do. They will bring more explosives, instability, chaos. They will attack Israel. We will retaliate, and the Lebanese people and the Israelis will continue to pay a heavy price.
But you're saying Lebanon has to be out in order for this to be...
Hezbollah.
Yes, to be a road for peace. But the interpretation of how to implement that is actually sparking a huge fear inside of Lebanon that it's going to cause civil war, including commentators and politicians in Israel on Channel 12. They said that this would lead or might lead to civil war. Do you have that fear?
So when you look at the countries in the region, the successful countries, you realize that in order to be a successful nation, you need to have one government, one military. The situation in Lebanon must change. If you have one government and your president and prime minister and your government take a decision, everyone should follow it. And the case that you have some elements saying, yes, but we don't want to do that, we want to do something else, it creates chaos. And that's what some people want. So for the future of Lebanon, it is about time that there will be one government, one military. You know, also we speak here at the UN about the unified force. We don't want the unified force to stay in the region. We want to work directly with the Lebanese military. They should be the one protecting the border of Lebanon. They should be the one making sure that radical elements like Hezbollah are not getting close to our border.
But the implementation is still has a lot of question marks. Even the IRA in Ireland, it took 7 years to disarm. Does that mean Israel is going to stay in southern Lebanon for as much as it takes?
We don't want to stay in southern Lebanon. We have no desire. We have no claim for the land. This land belongs to Lebanon, not to Hezbollah, not to us. It belongs to the Lebanese people. But for us to live safely, we have to push away Hezbollah. And I think now there is a window of opportunity for the Lebanese government, because we fought against Iran. Iran is weak now. We fought against Hezbollah. They are weak now. Now is the time to step in and to push them out. So our intention is to gradually move out, but we have to make sure that the Lebanese military is committed, is capable, and is strong enough to assume those positions and not allowing Hezbollah to come back to the region.
Ambassador, you're saying Lebanon belongs to the Lebanese people. Israel has no desire to stay in Lebanon, and eventually you will pull back to Israel. But how do you think does that sound alongside other voices in Israel speaking about greater Israel?
I think you have to listen to the government of Israel, to the cabinet of Israel, and Prime Minister Netanyahu was very clear about it. You know, we entered Lebanon after Hezbollah decided to attack us. They got instructions not from Beirut, they got instructions from Tehran, from Iran, and they started to attack Israel. So now when we are pushing them away from our border, once we feel that it is safe for us, we have no intention to stay there. You know, it's not part of Israel. Lebanon belongs to the Lebanese people. And I can tell you, you know, when I was a child, I used to come to the border between Israel and Lebanon with my parents. And I remember we used to call it the good fence. That was the name of the fence between Lebanon and Israel. Why the good fence? Because we had a very good relationship. We had people coming from Lebanon, and I think we can go back to those days of normalization, that Lebanese can come to Israel, Israelis can come to Lebanon, but you have to make sure the radicals are not taking over.
I think many people in the region, including many Lebanese, would like to hear what you just said. And you said you have to listen to the cabinet, not the voices that are talking about greater Israel. But your national security minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, explicitly proposed detaining, for instance, Lebanese women and children as strategic leverage. You often dismiss what he talks about as rhetoric and free speech in a democratic country. But he is a minister overseeing internal security, and he is a minister who also spoke about greater Israel. What do you say to the Lebanese people when they listen to such comments, and what do you say when they have the fears?
We have a democracy. We have more than 30 ministers in the government. They are allowed to say what they think. But at the end of the day, the government sits together and vote. And the Prime Minister is leading the government. And Prime Minister Netanyahu is leading this government. And he said it very clearly. We entered Lebanon because we had no choice. We don't want to stay there forever. We want to bring our boys and girls back to Israel. We want to have a border with Lebanon. And moreover, we even pray that inshallah, we will have a peace deal with Lebanon. We signed peace treaties with Egypt, with Jordan, with the UAE, Morocco, Bahrain. We want that Lebanon will be part of the Abraham Accords. It can happen. It can bring prosperity to Lebanon.
So why ministers like Ben-Gvir or Smotrich would say things like that? Is it because of internal politics? Is it because of elections? Because this is used as leverage by other people to use that narrative against Israel.
Well, it is being used by people who don't want to move forward, but they have to look at the actions of the Israeli government. And Prime Minister Netanyahu signed peace treaties with many countries. And I think that the fact that we signed this agreement with the Lebanese government, and I want to thank the US and President Trump and Secretary Rubio for mediating those important talks, it's significant. And I know that many people are not supporting it in Tehran. We shouldn't listen to them. We should listen to the Lebanese people. They know what's good for them.
If we go right now to talk about the language in the framework, there's a lot of interpretation and misinterpretation to it. The language in the framework suggests Lebanese sovereignty is not unconditional, since Israel remains and retains the right to operate on Lebanese soil. Is that indefinitely, you think? Do you have a timeline? What is the timeline that you could give to Lebanese people who would want a timeline?
I think it is up for the Lebanese government to decide about the timeline, because they have to prove capabilities. They have to prove that they are capable of mobilizing forces to those areas and to make sure that Hezbollah is not coming back to those places. And unfortunately, when you look at the past, you know, it's not the first time we entered Lebanon, unfortunately. But when we pulled back, you know, Hezbollah came in. So for now, we will have to see and verify that Hezbollah is not coming back, that the Lebanese military is there to stop them and to make sure that Hezbollah is not coming back. Because we know what the Iranians want. They want to sit on the border. They tried to do it in Syria, we blocked them. They tried to do it in Lebanon, we blocked them. They tried to mobilize Hamas against us, we blocked them. That's the strategy of Iran, to send proxies. They are not fighting with us directly. They want to use Lebanon in order to fight us.
But Clause 6 says Lebanon holds exclusive sovereign authority to make war and peace and rejects any third party exercising military or security roles on its behalf, which is what you're trying to say. And that is a direct reference to Iran and Hezbollah. But Clause 7 preserves Israel's right to self-defense inside Lebanon territory, and if it perceives anything as a threat. How is that not a contradiction to Lebanese sovereignty?
It is not. It is very clear to me. We want the Lebanese government to handle those situations. If, God forbid, Hezbollah is trying to come back, we want them to do it. If they are not doing it, or they are not capable of doing that, we will not sit idly by and wait for Hezbollah to assume the position and attack us. We will take actions. You know, and we see it actually a similar situation with the Palestinian Authority. You know, we have agreements with them. They are dealing with terrorist activities in Judea and Samaria. But if there is a scenario that we know that they don't want to fight Hamas, or they don't have the capability to go and arrest Hamas terrorists, we do it ourselves. But we always prefer that it will be the PA that take action against the radicals. Same with Lebanon. We would prefer that the Lebanese military will apply sovereignty, will not allow radical groups to stay next to our borders. If that will not work, then we will have to take action.
But you said that the Lebanese government's declarations don't match its abilities. So whose fault is that, you think? External forces, Lebanon's lack of funding, what exactly?
Well, first of all, I think it's very important that now the US made a commitment to support the economy of Lebanon, to support the military of Lebanon. I think it takes leadership. You know, you can speak about the military capabilities, training, weapons, but at the end of the day, you need leadership. And we expect the Lebanese leaders to pave the way in order to have full sovereignty. Full sovereignty. If they will allow Hezbollah to come to few areas, they will find them everywhere. They have to make sure that there is one military, one government.
In the framework, there is this secret annex, like security annex. The Times of Israel reported that the secret security annex to this framework classified at Lebanon's request and Lebanese president to not be published. And it contains Article 4, which explicitly grants the IDF freedom of operation against emerging and immediate threats in southern Lebanon. The same annex states that there will be no automatic withdrawals and no fixed timelines. Can you see why this might be concerning for Lebanese people?
You don't need to look for any annex or secret documents. I'm telling it to the camera. We have no desire to stay in southern Lebanon. We want the Lebanese military to have full control over the area and the situation. If they will not be able to do it, we will be there and we will fight Hezbollah. But we don't want to be the one doing it.
But
so it's very clear. In a scenario that the Lebanese military, for whatever reasons, political reasons, military reasons, is not there to prevent Hezbollah from coming back, we will be there. But it's not our first priority.
What's the difference between, you mean the parallelism in scenarios of what people heard, the same claims in Gaza, that we're not going to stay, this is only a security zone and we're going to retrieve. Do you think there is similarities, or it's a different scenario with Lebanon because it's a sovereign country?
No, first of all, it's different because you have a government and you have a military, and that's why we signed with the sovereign government of Lebanon. It is not the case. And at the end of the day, we want to see the Lebanese military next to our border. We want to deal with a country, with a sovereign country, not with a terrorist organization. Because when you look at Iran, for example, we have no conflict with Iran. Not fighting with them over territory. We have no conflict with them. The only reason is radical ideology, Shiite radical ideology against Israel. And they are trying to export this ideology.
But not Shia, not all Shiite.
Not all Shiite, the radicals. But they are trying to export the radical ideology into our region. But if we, Israelis and Lebanese, we don't have a conflict. We agreed over the gas rights and the Mediterranean. We agree over the borders. We'll agree about other issues. Why we need to fight? Because someone in Tehran is radical and wants to export the revolution to Lebanon? we shouldn't allow it.
Do you think the opposition leader in Israel, Yair Lapid, accused Prime Minister Netanyahu of hypocrisy, noting that the same politicians who attacked his 2022 maritime deal as a deal with Hamas are now signing a deeper agreement? How is this also a political play inside of Israel, or there are some concerns in Israel about this not to be implemented, and there's a fear that would drag Israel to an indefinite time in Lebanon and wars in Lebanon?
So, I was in Israeli politics for many years, and I know all of those players. I can tell you from New York that I see what's happening in Israel now. There's a lot of support for the agreement from all parties. So yes, we have elections in a few months. There are going to be a lot of arguments. But if you ask the Israelis about this agreement, they are happy with this agreement. Because for years we wanted to move forward with the Lebanese people. And we feel that now, maybe, no guarantees. It's still the Middle East. It has to be implemented and verified. But there is hope for peace. And that's something that we in Israel, we pray for peace and we appreciate it.
Before I forget, you mentioned that that's not the case. Israel does not hope to stay indefinitely in Lebanon. But if there is any violation, which happens historically in any between two different governments, if it stayed in clause 13 of the framework, it was signed by Lebanon that they won't go into legal forums to complain about any aggressions or war crimes or anything. That strips Lebanon away from this. Why do you think that clause was necessary to be there? And what does that mean? How do you explain this?
No, I think it's important that we have a mechanism to work together. And actually, in the last few months, together with the US, we built mechanism. When we see issues or threats, we don't speak directly with the Lebanese military, but there is a mechanism that together with the US that we are able to send messages directly. And I think that is the way to do it. When you have a neighbor and you have a problem with him, you speak with him and you resolve the issue. You don't go to court every Monday and Thursday and argue about the issues. You have a dialogue, and I think that's what we want to see, a dialogue between Israel and Lebanon, together with the support of the US.
But with the dialogue, let's say if there's good faith, right, then both parties should not fear then any violation from any side, right, because there's good faith. But even in marriages, there's a clause, there's a prenup, right? There's something that would protect both sides. Many in Lebanon think that this clause does not protect Lebanon having the legal right, legal framework to go to legal forums and other political allies, like say in Europe, to be able to complain if there is any violation.
Well, I can tell you, and I don't want to compare too much the Lebanese to the Palestinians, because I think the Lebanese people, they want to see peace, they want to live peacefully. Unfortunately, some of the Palestinian leaders, they became an expert to fight with Israel in the international arena, here at the United Nations, going to the ICC, going to the ICJ. We don't want to see a similar scenario, and I don't think we're heading to that direction. So basically, if somebody wants to fight or to argue, they will find a place to do that. I hope we will not to get to that place.
To go back to what Times of Israel reported about the security annex, why do you think this was not published? And why Lebanon or the Lebanese president would want it to be kept secret as it was reported?
Well, I think that's a question to ask the Lebanese parties to the agreement. I can tell you from what I see in the media that there are a lot of threats coming from radical elements, and that shows that the Hezbollah are under pressure. Once they start to threaten people who are actually engaging in a peaceful manner with a neighboring country, it shows that they are under pressure. And I hope and I believe that the leadership will be strong enough to push back against those threats and those radical elements who want to control Lebanon and not to support what's good for Lebanon. They want to control Lebanon to serve their masters in Tehran. That's enough. Khalas. It's about time that the Lebanese leaders will do what's good for the Lebanese people.
In Lebanon, I want to see if there's any fear from your perspective that this won't see light of full implementation, this framework. And talking about democracy, there are more or less 20 Lebanese political parties. They have representation, they have people affiliated to them. They are against this deal today. And there are 4 or 5 political parties in Lebanon, they are pro. In a democracy, how much do you think this would compromise the deal or would bury it?
I think it is a legitimate issue to have a debate about everything. We have the same in Israel. I think the question is the implementation. What actually happens on the ground. If when we pull out from a certain location, if the Lebanese military is coming in, or there's a void and Hezbollah will come in. I think that the debate is legitimate. We have debates also in Israel. But I think the implementation, that is the most important part of this agreement.
Since we're talking about implementation, the current implementation mechanism spans more, again, like for 7 years in Ireland, and we don't know how much this disarmament process and mechanism would last with Hezbollah. But Admiral Brad Cooper from CENTCOM visited Beirut to brief the Lebanese army forces directly about the situation. Israel repeatedly tried during negotiations to establish direct military contact, military-to-military communication with the Lebanese army, but Lebanon refused. The framework does not resolve that. How does implementation then work without direct contact or without direct communication?
I think at the end of the day, it's always better to have direct communication like you mentioned. But I think at the initial stage, we can count on the US and their goodwill, and we did it in the past. We had a mechanism that worked together with the US and Lebanon and Israel. So we have good experience with that mechanism. But if you ask me about long term, we do want to have direct contact. The same way we have contact with the Egyptian military on our southern border, and we have a direct contact with the Jordanian military on our eastern border. We want to have direct communication with Lebanon on our northern border.
The analysis that we've received describes that what happened in Washington last Thursday as follows. The Israeli delegation retreated from the agreed language at 3 p.m. and we heard the Israeli ambassador calling it train wreck. We thought that the talks are going to collapse. Before Saudi and Qatari pressure led Rubio to call Netanyahu directly. Is it accurate that Netanyahu had to be pressured by the United States Secretary Marco Rubio and the Gulf intervention to return to the table?
You know, I know Netanyahu very well. Prime Minister Netanyahu is not being pressured. He takes the right decisions for Israel. And I can tell you, it's not only now. For a very long time, he wanted to see a movement toward Lebanon. And I think that his decision was the right decision. And he took it after consideration, speaking with the experts, mainly from the military. You know, it's not a political issue. He was consulting mainly the military professionals about the implications of the agreement. And I think he took the right decision. I think what you mentioned about outside pressures, and we have to mention it, that there were talks in other places about different mechanisms that will involve many other countries, not from the region, to be involved in what's happening on the ground. So we prefer to speak directly or together with the US, with Lebanon, rather than to have, I don't want to mention all the names of those countries, but you can Google it and see countries that have no connection to the region, and all of a sudden they should be the one to monitor what's happening on the ground. That's not a recipe for success. We believe in direct talks with the Lebanese, with the support of the US. That should be the way to move forward.
I'm going to ask not about the other countries, because you already answered that question without me asking that question. But I want to ask about the contradiction between the Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU, and this framework, because Lebanon has been mentioned 3 times in the MOU, which is a deal brokered by Vice President J.D. Vance. And it says clearly that in order for the deal between Iran and the United States to be implemented fully within the 60-day clock, Israel has to withdraw from Lebanon. In this framework that's signed between directly Israel and Lebanon, which is brokered at the State Department with Secretary Rubio, there's no mention to that. People think that there is contradiction. Why?
Well, I think at the end of the day, the fact that we chose to sign an agreement with the Lebanese government speaks for itself. It means that we think that this is the right way to move forward. It's a practical way. And I think both Lebanon and Israel, in our short history, we had times of other countries trying to dictate what will happen on the ground. It was never successful. The only way to be successful, that you have independent governments taking the right decisions for themselves. It's happening in Israel, and I think now Lebanon is in the right direction to go to that place also.
But President Trump has a huge leverage for the MOU, the deal with Iran. You think that the framework between Israel and Lebanon is going to top what Trump is trying to gain with Iran?
No, but I don't want to speak about the MOU because we are not part of that discussion. President Trump is speaking there. But when you see what's happening there, that most of the countries wants to make sure that Iran is not achieving nuclear military, that there is control of the ballistic missiles, the proxies. And all of a sudden Iran, they care about what's happening in Lebanon. Why is that? Because they care about the Lebanese people, because they care about the Lebanese economy, because they care about rebuilding the communities that were destroyed in Lebanon? No. Because Iran wants to make sure Hezbollah will stay in Lebanon and will dictate the future of Lebanon. So that is the interest of Iran in this game. We are not part of it. We care about our security. We want to have a quiet, peaceful border with Lebanon, and that's what we are focusing at.
Two more questions. One about how things are dictated. If Iran is dictating, is it dictating right now through the Speaker of the Lebanese Parliament, Nabi Berri, because he publicly refused this framework?
First of all, I don't think they are dictating. They are trying to dictate. They are trying to influence. They are failing in that. They are frustrated. And maybe they are trying to express that frustration through their allies in Lebanon. I don't know how it works in the political game in Lebanon, but there is frustration in Tehran because they lost a lot of assets in the last few months, and they're feeling that they are losing control over Lebanon today. And I think it's a good sign.
Prime Minister Netanyahu said this agreement is part of Israel's plan to reshape the Middle East. This is a significant statement. Arab audiences, Lebanese, Gulf, Iraqi, Israelis are asking what that reshaping looks like for them. Who was consulted and who consented to this?
So I think you have to understand the language of Prime Minister Netanyahu. When he speaks about reshaping, he speaks about peace. He speaks about peace with the moderate elements in the Middle East. And before October 7th, we wanted to move forward with the Saudis. We have seen the significant agreement we signed with the UAE and Bahrain. And here in the UN, a few weeks ago, you saw the UAE and Bahrain pushing a resolution against Iran in the Security Council. I came in to support that resolution. And I think we can expand the alliance of moderate voices in the Middle East. That is the message of the Prime Minister. To reshape the Middle East is to take it from the radicals and to bring it to a better place.
Ambassador Danny Danon, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.